Joining us now, Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, a member of the Committee on Foreign Relations, likewise a member of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. Ron, as always, we appreciate your input here on America's Forum.
Hello, JD. How you doing?
Well, I think, Ron, you, I, and so many other Americans are dealing with the shock of that horrific video that the government now authenticates as indeed the execution of James Foley. What have you heard from your committee? What's the inside story that you can share with us?
Well, this obviously isn't the first beheading. And, I've been pretty outspoken for literally weeks and months about, first of all, our need to, get support to the Kurds so they can defend their region and recognize the gathering storm, the threat that ISIS really does represent to America. ISIS has been highly organized. They're highly trained. They've patiently executed a strategy to establish this caliphate, and they've been pretty out front in terms of what their long-term goal is. They want to use this caliphate, this territory, as a base to attack the West. And, JD, we had Brett McGurk in front of our committee at the end of July, and I asked him point blank, can you describe the American people, why ISIS represents the threat to America? And he talked about the way that ISIS is funneling 30 to 50 suicide bombers into Iraq every month. Now, we also know that ISIS is composed of individuals that are streaming from the West with Western passports, and so he made the point it would be very easy for ISIS to start funneling those suicide bombers into Western nations. The week he testified before us, an Australian and a German suicide bomber set themselves off in Baghdad, and we've seen, of course, the first American suicide bomber set himself off in Syria in May. So this is a real threat. And, I agree with President Obama. We need a coalition of the willing to defeat ISIS, but it is going to take American leadership. And that's what I still have not heard out of President Obama, is a clear strategy to defeat ISIS.
Of course, so many different themes at work here, and to that horrible execution itself, apparently an English speaker referring to himself as John the Beetle with a British accent. Have you heard anything more? This follows up with what you're talking about so many Western Europeans getting involved in jihad. Do we know more about the so-called John the Beetle?
No, I know British intelligence is working fiercely to try and identify this individual, but we do know through intelligence sources that there are literally hundreds of jihadists coming from the West, flowing into Syria, getting trained, getting battle-hardened, and these people possess Western passports, and it represents a real danger to our country. And let's face it, we've seen the brutality, the barbarism of ISIS. Their diplomacy, JD, is beheadings. It is crucifixion. When they're not committing mass executions, they're burying people alive, kidnapping women, forcing them into forced marriage. I saw a picture, JD, and this is just heart-wrenching, of an ISIS terrorist with his arms around his 7-year-old bride. This is evil. It has to be defeated. It cannot be contained. I hear all the time that America is war-weary. I'll tell you who is not war-weary. ISIS. They are emboldened. They are feeling their strength. Their strength is growing, and they need to be defeated. They cannot be contained.
And following all the information about Mr. Foley, following the president's brief address as he came in from vacation, made that quick statement, then went back out to the golf course, late yesterday afternoon, early evening, we get a report from the Pentagon saying, hey, we tried a rescue mission. When I heard that, I was going, what on earth are they doing talking about a failed rescue mission? What do you know about the Pentagon, the politics behind or the reasoning behind coming out and talking about a failed rescue attempt earlier this summer in Syria trying to find these hostages?
Well, what we've seen out of this administration repeatedly is just politicization of military and covert actions. And you are right, JD. We're far better off doing this quietly and covertly. It serves no purpose to go out here and beat your chest and go, hey, well, at least we tried. If anything, that just emboldens ISIS further and gives them greater propaganda. Here's a statement that disturbs me that the president made yesterday. He said, people like this ultimately fail. They fail because the future is won by those who build and not destroy. No, the future is won by people that go out and win it. That it is won by people that go defeat evil. It doesn't just happen by itself. And I really am looking for a real strategy out of this president beyond just protecting Americans in Baghdad and acting when there's just a humanitarian crisis about to be committed, like a genocide against the Yazidis. We need a strategy. We need a president that is leading the world, that is assembling that coalition of the world, willing that would include Western nations, that would include Arab states that are also threatened by ISIS. We need a president on the job. And, you mentioned the president going right back out the golf course. It's further evidence of his detachment, his lack of leadership on this issue. And this is a moment in time when America sorely needs strong leadership.
Oftentimes, ISIS is characterized as a backward-looking organization, but their evil uses modern applications. To wit, Ron Johnson, we have heard that ISIS actually had the email address of the Foley family and had been emailing that family directly, threatening to execute their loved one before it happened. Have you heard anything about those reports?
No, I don't have any further information on that, but like you said, we've underestimated ISIS. Remember back in January, after ISIS had retaken Fallujah, President Obama, in an interview to David Remnick of the New Yorker, basically called them the JV team. I don't know whether he's denying reality or whether he simply isn't recognizing it, but one of my concerns here is, in a statement to Tom Friedman, he said we're not going to let them create some kind of caliphate through Syria and Iraq. And then, when he announced the airstrikes, he said we're doing that so that terrorists cannot establish a permanent safe haven. JD, I'm afraid this president has drawn a red line that has already been crossed. And so I just do not understand what this president really intends to do. He is not being clear about his strategy. He needs to first he has to develop a strategy, and then he has to clearly articulate it and then implement it. And from my standpoint, that strategy must be assembling that coalition of the willing to defeat ISIS.
Well, among those who would be part of that coalition are British cousins, the United Kingdom. British Prime Minister David Cameron interrupted his holiday to return to London. Here is the reaction of British Prime Minister David Cameron.
Let me condemn completely the barbaric and brutal act that has taken place. And let's be clear what this act is. It is an act of murder, and murder without any justification.
David Cameron hard at work, as we mentioned. He ended his holiday. President Obama continues his vacation. But Ron, we are also getting reports that the approach the administration is going to take is to treat this as a crime committed against an American overseas. In other words, they're going to dispatch the FBI to do a law enforcement investigation. Have you heard about that? And is that the right response, or is it more properly defined as an act of war in addition to being a horrible act of execution?
A war is going on. It's been going on since the mid-'90s. We ignored that war against us by Al-Qaeda at our own peril, and thousands of Americans perished in the downing of the Twin Towers. And the war continues. I know President Obama declared about a year ago that the war on terror is over. It is not over. And again, ISIS is not war weary. This is a direct threat to the United States and American citizens, and we just saw that in the execution, the brutal execution of Jim Foley. And so we need a president that recognizes reality. We need a president that is fully engaged on the job, leading and assembling this coalition of the willing to defeat ISIS. There's no other way of treating this thing. They can't be contained. It can't be a police action. They are at war with us, and if we refuse to acknowledge that reality, we ignore it at our own peril.
We'll leave it right there. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, we thank you for your time.
Have a great day, JD.
So, Ron Johnson, with his point of view on the execution of James Foley, on the president continuing his vacation, and on the reaction of Prime Minister David Cameron. What is your reaction to all those events? We would love to know your opinion. Why don't you tweet me your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. You can also use this address, if you will, newsmaxtv.com/comment. And don't forget Facebook. You find us at facebook.com/Newsmax. Still ahead, we'll focus on Ferguson, Missouri. Attorney General Eric Holder is there. Attorney General Eric Holder says he sympathizes with those who feel singled out by the police. Is that the right frame of mind for our nation's top law enforcement officer? We'll talk about it with a panel next here on America's Forum.